Greetings, everyone. Nice to see you tonight. This is Dale Parrish, Convention of States Indiana Live host, and along with my co-host, Mr. Ken Kashuba, State Communications Coordinator. Hello, Ken. How you doing?
Yeah, how about yourself?
Good, good. Can't hear you a little bit. Turn up your volume just a little bit there.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Is that a little better?
Oh, yeah. That's good. That's good.
Bring the mic a little closer, that's all.
Well, Ken will be, along with co-hosting tonight, will be monitoring viewer comments and questions. So any of you that may be viewing via Facebook or YouTube, feel free to submit a comment or a question, and Ken will take a look at that and give us a high sign if that's something we need to address and talk about. So that'll be what Ken will be doing on the side. Ken, this is, I hope we got this count right. We're at number 262, and you've been along for 123 of those. I tell you, these numbers are growing, Ken. These numbers are getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Here we are already in September of 2024. Who would have thought?
That's right. I think my first broadcast was late 2019, I believe.
Wow.
Somewhere right around there. Of course, we didn't.
You became Walter Cronkite here, you know.
Yeah. We didn't broadcast weekly like we are now at that point in time. But anyway, so it's been a great journey, and I hope we can keep it going for a much longer time. So, well, Ken, this is one of your favorite topics, I know, because you zing me on this all the time.
Well, it's kind of hard to do, Dale, because these things are, pretty soon you're going to be, when you get pulled over for speeding, the cop's going to ask you for your QR code. And
you think so?
Oh yeah.
That is, I guess, a possibility. And here's all my information on this QR code, huh?
I love you. And then send me my ticket, right there. You can send it through the QR code.
Yeah. Okay. How convenient that would be. Yes.
Well, that QR code right there, I'm going to almost touch it, is really for our viewers that tune in either every week or are just new to us. That is a subscriber QR code. And what that's going to do is going to open up a platform to you for subscribers that gives you a lot of things that you can't get elsewhere. So a lot of freebies, and basically a platform where you can keep an eye on things that are going on in the past as well as in the future for COSIL. And we encourage those to subscribe by just taking your smartphone out and zinging that QR code, and you can just put in your name and email address, and we'll put you on our QR code or our COSL platform. I'll also put that right now. I'll put that right into the chat with a URL for those that want to cheat.
Okay, good. Well, just so you know, I just bought a new printer, and of course the installation guide right there, a QR code. You just so I had to scan that to learn how to install this printer, and we still didn't get it installed. So.
Still didn't work, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna have to get some help on that anyway, but it's just the way it is. All right, Ken. Well, listen, let's move on. We've got a jam-packed program tonight. A lot of good things going on. But first of all, let's bring on our state director, Dale Tipton, and we'll get an update from Dale as to how the state stands for the month of August. So let's bring Dale on. Hello, Dale.
Hello, gentlemen.
Yeah, he always says gentlemen, Ken.
You notice how he starts out as with gentlemen, and by the time he leaves, it's a little something different.
Yeah, it's quite different. Yes, it is. Yes, but we'll.
And I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm trying to be kind the whole episode. So.
Oh, I see.
The whole time you're going to be kind, huh?
Yeah, okay. that is a COS core value, being kind.
Yeah.
He is correct on that. That is right. Yes.
That's a good point. Yeah. Slip that in, Dale.
Of course, some of us are striving a little more to achieve that. But anyway,
we digress.
So how did we shape up for August?
Well, let's roll up a banner or two.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is obviously numbers that continue to grow. I think it was 300 to 400 this past month. Petition signers and supporters. I think Indiana is very lucky to have the number of in-state support. These numbers are very good if you look at numbers from other states. So we're very pleased to be able to report those.
We're right up there. Yep. Okay. And Charlie Corneau, we've had him on a roundtable before.
Yep. Charlie has been working with us as a district captain, and he's had some situations changed in his life. And so he's decided to step back from being a DC, and we wanted to just recognize him for his efforts. And he's going to be assisting the follow-up team and making telephone calls to new petition signers. So he'll be able to assist us in that way, just a change of direction. One thing I would say is, although he was a DC and now he's a member of the follow-up team, Convention of States does have numerous positions to be filled, and so there's always a place for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how life can change things, can it? Yeah. So
it certainly can.
Yeah. Charlie's a good guy. So I'm sure he'll do a good job there. Now tell us about all these guys, all these people. What's happening there?
Well, new and returning DCs, basically, we're just kind of reworking things. The district captain position is the role that's integral in interacting with our legislators. And there's many people in leadership who do various roles, eat and chew gum at the same time, I guess, where, they may have one position or another position, but also do things that a district captain would do. And so we've decided to activate those guys in the system again so that we've got a better count for representation we have in each of the districts across the state. So what you see here is a list of leaders in the state that are also now being recognized as doing some of the district captain work.
Now, is each person, well, and you're one of these people, are you assigned a specific district, or are you just taking on the role of district captain?
No, I'm in my district, Indiana 9.
Okay, so basically the district where the person resides.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, interesting. That's very good. Very
make
good.
it a little easier to keep track of things.
Yeah. Here's a nice big number. A couple big numbers.
Now why is it you always get so excited about this number? I'm not sure. Well, that's obviously, hats off to you guys. 140,759 views, and we just started to track followers, 12,250. So those are some pretty good numbers. I mean, especially considering maybe 6 months ago, how things were.
Yeah.
So it's exponential growth, basically.
Yeah, we're like you said, we're gonna start tracking the number of followers. We haven't tracked that before, but very pleased to have over 12,000 followers. Views, not a record, but very, very good performance. Very good.
Those that view number is rising about as fast as the number of aliens streaming across our southern border. So that's really good.
No connection. I do not see any connection there at all. I don't think.
I think Dale was offering anybody coming across that if they became a follower, he was going to give them part of his Social Security check. So that's probably where all that's happening.
Not really, Ken. I was just going to offer him a piece of paper with your QR code.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Yeah, they probably know what that is too. Okay, some outstanding people.
Yeah, this is the folks that are the top, statistical individuals for the state. Many of the names you've seen before, but these folks are doing an outstanding job for us, doing events and things across the state, and we just like to recognize a few folks each month for their contribution.
It's important that people are recognized for the job that they do. That's very good. Very good. Okay, and finally, we got one of our annual meetings coming up, right?
Yeah, that's scheduled on October 5th, as it has been for a while. People can RSVP with Stacy Garrett if they would like to come, and she's kind of keeping track of the people for us and whatever, but we're expecting to have a good day. It's one of the few times during the year that we all get together face to face outside of a Zoom meeting. So it's a good opportunity to break bread and or in this case, eat some pretty good pizza. So it'll be good to see everybody.
Good. Dale, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you next month to give us an update on how we fared in the month of September.
And thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dale. Have a good evening. All right, Ken. I want to jump now to the debt clock. This is a series called Debt Avalanche that our Gary Harbaugh has been doing. And Gary has recorded a piece on the debt clock. And he's going to take us through a section of the debt clock. And I've asked Gary to, since that debt clock has a lot of information there, I've asked Gary to kind of go section by section through that debt clock. So let's play that now, and we'll come back and sum it up. But this is next in our series, a Debt Avalanche, Gary with the debt clock.
Sounds good.
Hi, it's Gary, and this is our next installment on the Debt Avalanche. You see on my screen here the U.S. debt clock, and you see this figure up here in the upper left. We've surpassed 35.
I don't know what happened there, Ken.
We had a freeze. You want to give it another try, just see if it works?
Let me try again here.
There again. Sometimes it takes a reboot.
Yeah. Okay. Doesn't seem to be working at all now.
Yeah, I have to remove it. Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, you know what? It probably once he started talking about 35 trillion, it probably blew up.
You think that's it, huh?
Yeah. You know, that debt clock can only run so long.
Let me try one more time here.
Give it another shot.
Well, I don't know what's happening now, so it won't play, Ken.
No, it doesn't. Yep. Well,
Okay.
We'll have to do a replay on that next week.
Yep. Well, I want to move on then to what we had planned, and I hope the rest of these play okay. But let's move on to the next segment that we planned on presenting tonight, and that is the episode number 3 of our Meet the Founders that Larry Hudson has been doing. And this is part 1 of episode 3, and it's on George Washington. So let's keep our fingers crossed here. Let's hope this works here, okay? So we'll bring on Larry Hudson, Meet the Founders, George Washington. Welcome, everyone. This is Dale Parrish, once again, coming back to you with Meet the Founders series with Larry Hudson. And Larry is with us right now. We just finished up Thomas Jefferson, Larry, and now I'm looking very forward to what you've got for us today on George Washington. You know, he's been referred to, of course, as the commander-in-chief during the Revolutionary War, and, of course, the father of our country. So many, I think, consider him the father of our country. But so anyway, I've looked over your outline, and as you can expect, I've got several questions. So let's get started, Larry.
Good. Happy to. Well, As I said a moment ago, I guess offline, there's so much written about Washington that it's hard to keep track. I think I've got 6 books, and I'm in number 7 right now, which is somewhat of a biography. So I'm really anxious to, and it deals more with his personal life as a farmer, a planter. So that should open up some things I've never heard before. But I hope that I can provide our listeners with some interesting facts and hopefully some, I don't know, not so well known anecdotes in the life of George Washington. As you said, and as I just concurred in, a lot's been written on him. And I found him, as I did Jefferson, conflicted, complicated, certainly. I think often misunderstood, and perhaps even a bit mysterious. He was, of course, our first American hero, really. And some might say that he was the indispensable, I read this in one biography, the indispensable man for that time. By most accounts, we all know that he was a big man, probably a head higher or taller than most people around him in that day. He was, some say, 6'2". I read one case where they thought he was 6'4", and he weighed in about 180 to 200 pounds.
So that was considered a pretty good size.
Yeah. When he entered the room, everybody could see him.
Right.
Looking up. And so that had a lot to do with his gravitas, I guess you would say, as a young man and then as a general and as a president. Jefferson described him actually as the finest horseman in the country. He evidently learned to ride a horse from his half brother, actually Lawrence, who taught him an awful lot. And he was a good horseman. He made his debut, if you will, in the military during what's called the French and Indian War, at least here in our country. You'll hear it referred to as the 7 Years' War in Canada and in Europe, of course. And as you'll hear, Washington came away, I'm going to say, with a very mixed review before going on to become the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, say, during the Revolutionary War. And of course, he was elected president of the Constitutional Convention back in 1787. Mm-hmm. And he was elected, of course, president, the country's first president. And I'll just end up by saying, I think I read one historian who said, without George Washington, the United States simply would not exist. So you might ask, who was he? Where did he come from? How did he manage to do all this?
Quite a guy, quite a history here. So you got it. Let's give us a sense then of the time period that we're going to be discussing, and tell us about his formative years, his family background, his experience as a surveyor. I understand.
Yes.
Military officer. Now, you say he was a military officer fighting for the crown?
Oh, yes. In the early years, this was before the Revolutionary War, obviously. This was back in the 1750s, 1760s.
Okay.
So he was born, he was wealthy. He was born into a family of wealth on a plantation. I think it was called Pope's Creek. It was in Westmoreland County, Virginia. And he was born, 11 years before Thomas Jefferson. So that would make it 1732. So Thomas Jefferson was 11 years his junior. And we discussed that, I think, back in our episode on Jefferson. His father was a man named Augustine Washington. Friends called him Gus. His mother was a woman called Mary Ball, and who became Mary Ball Washington. Augustine was, as I said, wealthy, prosperous planter in the area of Virginia where they lived, and he owned at that time, when Washington was born, 10,000 acres and 50 slaves.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, he served as a justice of the county court, which made him a very powerful man. He was educated in England before he came to this country, settled down to manage this large estate he inherited, and he had married George's mother, Mary Ball. That was his second marriage. His first wife, Jane Butler, died. I'm not sure what of or how old, but he and Jane had 4 children, and only 2 of those lived to adulthood. And then he married Mary Ball, and they had 6, 5 of whom lived to adulthood. He was wealthy enough, as I said, he was wealthy enough to send his 2 boys, the 2 surviving sons, back to England, where he went to school for their schooling. And there's not much information that I could find about his mother, Mary. Some records indicate that she was somewhat complicated, often had a strained relationship with her oldest son, George, and yet was an undeniably influential figure in his life, really, even up during the time he was president. There's correspondence that survives with her corresponding with him as when he sat in the Oval Office, so to speak. Some described her as crude, greedy, self-centered, a loyalist. She was a loyalist, and she was a slaveholder, and a particularly oppressive slaveholder, apparently, according to some accounts. Others have insisted just the opposite. She was a saint, God-fearing Christian woman who raised a perfect son. And of course, chances are she was neither one of those, but the record does indicate she was a pretty strong, resilient woman. She stayed a single mother when he died and went on to raise her 5 children, certainly to be disciplined, purpose-driven, and I think above all, virtuous.
Right.
It's true that he felt obliged to obey her wishes even early in his life and even somewhat later on in his life. For as long as she lived, she would occasionally write to him asking him for small sums of money, which wound up irritating him to a degree. And I'll touch on this a bit later.
Okay. Well, so George was one of 7 surviving children, right?
Right.
Basically, between the 2 marriages.
Between the 2 marriages, yes.
Yeah. And he was the 3rd in line, am I right, of the males that were born to his dad?
That's true.
So
he had 2 older half brothers.
So being the 3rd in line, how did he manage to then inherit the property and the slaves and Mount Vernon? How did that come about?
Well, let's go back to when he was about 6. That's the earliest I could find. He moved with his parents and his step siblings. There were 3 at that time. A female died later on. They moved to a piece of property called Ferry Farm, Ferry, and it was located near Fredericksburg, Virginia. And as you suggest, when Augustine died in 43, that would make George but 11 years old. The oldest of 5 children that he had with Mary, but there were 2 older brothers from that first marriage that were ahead of him. So Augustine left most of his property to George's adult half-brothers. Lawrence was the oldest, 14 years older than George, and Augustine Jr., who I think was 10 years older. And those 2 received the English education from their father. He had money enough to send them back to England for an education, but he did not do so with George. And then Ferry Farm in Augustine's will became the home for George as he grew up in the Virginia countryside, if you will. And there's just very little known about his early childhood. He attended school irregularly from about 7 to 15. His first instruction came from a local church rector, who I guess is kind of a handyman, as what a church rector was in those days. and then from a schoolmaster named Williams. And some of his childhood school papers do survive. And it appears that he received what we would call a grammar school education, a basic education in reading, writing. He was fairly well trained in mathematics that included geometry, geography, possibly Latin. He read some English classics, as he refers to them in some of his letters. But most of his training was given him by his older, 14 years older half-brother Lawrence, who'd received his education in England. And it's interesting, Washington did produce, at a rather young age of about 14 or 15, I think, what was called then a copybook. And he transcribed a set of, I guess I'll call them moral precepts. What was then titled, quote, I'll read it here, Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior in Company and Conversation. He took it upon himself to transcribe these 110 rules. In fact, I've got a copy of it. You can buy the book. It's been preserved, or a booklet on Amazon, but it covered many of the proper social graces of that time period. And they were apparently written down somewhere. He got a hold of them. They were maxims that the French Jesuits had circulated, 100 years prior to Washington. And as I said, that copybook is available on Amazon or through Wall Builders if you're interested. The website Wall Builders has that book as well. And he he eventually became sufficiently familiar with surveying. You mentioned that when we started here. Right. Apparently, he set about, as a teenager, plotting fields around him for hire. People would want to know what their property lines were, and he would hire out to them and do that. And at his father's death, Washington became the ward of Lawrence, his older half-brother. And Lawrence had inherited this beautiful estate called Little Hunting Creek. And in Augustine's will, he endowed Ferry Farm, where Washington grew up, and 10 slaves to young George. But he wouldn't get to become the legal property owner until he turned 21. So George, the oldest male line, and the children with Mary would be called upon to assume responsibilities of assisting his mother. He didn't own the farm, but it would become his farm at the age of 21 because she did not remarry.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that his mother was a resolute person, and that her relationship with George was often strained. I think is what you said. What was that where it all started with him and his mother then?
Well, I read on two different, stories about being somewhat disjointed from his mother. I don't know that they're true necessarily, or that it proves anything. But the first interesting story, she refused to allow George to join the Royal Navy. He idolized Lawrence, and Lawrence was an officer in the Virginia militia, and he thought he would do well as a midshipman in the Royal Navy, so he suggested George do that, and Mary said, absolutely not. She just said, there's no way that's going to happen. She had, contacted her brother, who was living in London at the time, and her brother argued that life in the Navy would be just too laborious and too unprofitable for George. In fact, he said, quote, the Navy would cut and staple him and use him like a Negro, or rather like a dog, unquote. So she listened to her brother, and there was no appeal that could dissuade her. And so Washington abided by her wishes, and he went ahead and pursued that career as a land surveyor instead of a naval officer.
Okay.
It's been charged that also that she was openly opposed to his politics as a revolutionary, and according to some people that lived around her in Virginia, she was a loyalist, sympathizer. But there's no, I guess, creditable evidence that I found to support that legend.
Hmm. All right. Well, that's. Hope everyone found that interesting. Larry Hudson's done just a fantastic job on these Meet the Founder episodes, and that's part one of George Washington. And we'll be playing part two on a future broadcast. Ken, have you got the debt clock video?
I'm glad you said that. I'm trying to locate that right now. I think I can go ahead and bring it up, or at least try it from my end. If you give me just a second, I'll see if I've got that here.
Well, why don't we go ahead with the next one and see if you've got it by the time we finish this next segment, okay?
Yep, that'll be fine. Go right ahead.
Okay, give you a little more time. If not, we'll wait till next week and play it then.
Matter of fact, I do have it. I've got it here. So however you want to do it, I can upload now if you like.
You got it? Can you do it right now?
Yep.
Okay, let's do it. This is Gary Harbaugh on the debt clock. Let's hope this works this time.
Well, go ahead and play the other one, Dale. I gotta make sure I got the right one.
All right. Okay. Well, what I wanted to play was part two of our interview with an organization called Patriot Mail Project. Now, this is part of our Pillars of Freedom series with Wendy Olson, and we played part one of the interview. This is with Marie Goodwyn and Paula Calloway, and they run the Patriot Mail Project, which is a support group for the January 6th prisoners and their families. So let's go ahead and we'll play part two of this interview. So here we go. Yeah, Paula, are you? Is Patriot Mail? Do you help families financially, or is this purely just support?
All right, so we focus on the mail, and I'm sorry about that. I don't know how to turn it off. We focus mainly on the mail all year. The mail is our priority. There is so many organizations that are helping with the families, so we want our priority to always be mail. That they get support, they know that they're not forgotten, and that they have these letters of encouragement, especially the ones that are in jail. But it doesn't mean that the ones at home don't need it just as much. But we do a Christmas drive every year. That is our one fundraiser that we do. And we sign up the families with children that register with us to do that. And whatever we raise, we just divide amongst the families. Like, for instance, last year we raised right at $60,000, and we divided that, I think, 70 to 74 families.
Oh, great. I know that I'm learning that not only individuals involved in January 6th, but the family members. It's just they've been devastated. This is devastating to families. In my interview with Jeremy Brown, he made the statement that the punishment really is the process that you have to go through. That's really the punishment involved here. So I guess you hear some pretty sad stories, don't you?
We do, and it's not just the ones that are being arrested. I mean, it's their whole family that is affected. It's the husbands and the wives and the children and the parents, and it's heartbreaking to hear these stories.
Yeah. And am I right? I think Marie, you told me earlier that they enjoy receiving any kind of communication, whatever you want to talk about with them, right? Is that
Yes, of course, some people are going to talk about events happening in America and things like that. And they kind of like to have some news because they don't get a lot of news in prison. But I personally write about my life, and they just enjoy it very much. They relate how things happen to me. You know, I'm French, so I talk about my vacations in France, in Spain, what I did in college, in school. You know, all those things that are just life, and they enjoy it because it takes them a little bit out of the prison cell. You know, you know, they think about it, and they love it. And they all tell me, you know, continue to write. Even those who are released, they still want me to write them and continue. So it's fun, and it's fun for them to have something like that. But each person is different. We have a friend. Actually, that would be somebody very good for you to interview. It's Kathleen Mervar. She started the MAGA Mouse story, and the MAGA Mouse is a story about one of the prisoners in the DC Gulag. We call it the DC Gulag. It's DCCTF. They found a mouse that was injured in the cell, and they brought the mouse back to life. You know, took care of it, and then they released it, but they called it MAGA Mouse.
Mighty Mouse?
So, MAGA Mouse, and Kathleen run with the story, and she did a book. She has a website, it's called magamouse.com. And so she writes about lots of things, but she's a Christian woman and a young woman. And so she does a lot of things about that, and she writes to hundreds of people already every one. She's amazing.
Well, let's go on your website and let's take a look at that and show people what that's going to look like. I'm gonna give everyone a full screen here. We're all still here. We haven't gone away. You can hear us, but you won't be able to see us. So this is your website, and is this where you start up here, Paula? Would you be the one to kind of guide us through this?
Okay, so if you're first time coming to the site, I would probably start at that home page, and I've got you see the white background with the red letters. So it's going to explain kind of how the mail project works. So I would scroll down that home page first before starting,
Okay.
and that might answer some of your questions.
Okay. Boy, you have a lot of information here on various people. It's
Yeah.
Right.
Do you see those white boxes there with the red lettering?
Yes.
Okay. That's where I would start first. It's going to kind of explain how the mail project works, and probably answer a lot of the questions before you get started. And then, then from there, I would go over to the drop down under the home button.
Under the home page, under the home menu here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now I wanna test this. I live in Indiana, and I want to find someone in prison from Indiana that I can communicate with. So where do I go here? This J6 search and filter? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Where I click on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it will take a little while to load because it's loading all their files at the bottom. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to find someone that was in the military. Doesn't make any difference which branch. So it's already got all checked here. Male or female. Okay. And is this where I put the home state?
That's where you put the home state. And then if you want to go further with the in jail, you'll have to hit that other button up above.
Okay, there's Indiana, and here where it says incarcerated.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So here are the ones from Indiana that are incarcerated. Now, are these ones that are open to receive communication?
Yes. Yes. So if you'll click on that more info, it'll tell you how to write to those that are incarcerated.
Okay. Well, I want to communicate with Mark Mazza here. So I click on more information, and this brings up Mark, and that would be the mailing address.
Yes, sir.
I can't email, right? This has to be snail mail.
Snail mail until you've made some contact. They do have ways to email. There's Getting Out and Core Links, and I'm sure there's more than just that. So, if you're corresponding back and forth with someone and they do want to add you to their email list, if you want to get that app and pay for that service, then you could correspond back and forth through email. But the initial contact, I guess, really you'd have to do snail mail.
Okay. Very interesting. Great. Okay, folks. So you COS Convention of States viewers, we like writing letters to legislators. So here's an opportunity, folks, to write letters to J6 prisoners or J6 people that have been affected by January 6th. So this is a great opportunity, I think. So if I want to go back to the home page, I just press home, and that'll take me back.
Yes. And if you want to search some more, you can just click J6 search and filter there as well. Either way. And you might want to let them know, too, that the American Gulag Chronicles link is on the site. And if they would like to read some letters from those that have been in jail, that is a great place to get started.
Where's that, Paula?
That's at the top menu. American Gulag Chronicles.
Oh, okay. All right.
There are 2 books, and they've got some really good stuff in there. Marie, that's more her baby there, so she could explain that a lot better. But it is a great gift to give to someone.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent. Well, hopefully that will help our viewers and maybe get some people involved and in communicating with these individuals, because I'm sure they enjoy getting communication from people out here, so that they're not forgotten. So, well, Marie and Paula, I want to thank you very much for introducing us to Patriot Mail Project, and I really want to thank you for the work that you do here on behalf of these individuals. Any final words from both of you as we wrap up here?
Well, we thank you very much for helping us to get the word out, and just do hope that people will take the time to find somebody to write to. One of the questions that we always get is, how do I pick who to write to? And there's just so many different ways to do that. I often recommend, just go to your home state, find somebody from your home state.
Yeah.
Maybe write somebody that is incarcerated right now first. I think that, everyone needs that encouragement, but if you're sitting behind bars, you need that quite a bit more.
Yeah. Marie, you're muted. You're muted, Marie.
I'm sorry. I'd like to mention also that we have fundraisers, individual fundraiser for not for each person, but some of the J6ers have a fundraiser on Gibson Go or some other place, and we have links to that. So if a person wants to not only write but maybe contribute to the fundraiser, then it's a good thing to do too. And because there's a lot of suffering going on here. People have lost their homes, people have lost their cars, they have a hard time paying bills. So helping them, and of course, if you're going to get an attorney besides a public defender, it's thousands and thousands of dollars, and most of the people really do not have that kind of money right on the top. But yeah, that's a way also to help people. There are links to fundraisers as well, individual fundraisers.
And those Give Send link goes, that is theirs directly. That doesn't bypass through any of or our organization or anyone else. That's somebody in their family or their sphere of friends that has set that up for them.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap, ladies. I want to once again thank you for sharing your time with us today to talk about Patriot Mail Project. So keep up the good work, and thanks again. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, Ken, I can't make up my mind whether we want to try and play this or not. I don't want to run over our time limit tonight. So
I've got it if you want it.
Yeah, I think we'll hold off and do it again at a future date. All right.
Yep.
So yeah, the Patriot Mail Project. I think that was an interesting. We're going to try, and Wendy's lining up some other support groups like that group, and I think I've mentioned this before. I've discovered there's quite a network of support groups out there for the J6 prisoners. So we're going to be meeting some more groups as time goes on here. Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up here, and then we'll wrap things up. Now, our next broadcast is going to be next Monday on the 16th, and we've got a really special interview coming up on the 16th, and this is with Mark and Amber Archer, the owners of Fearless Features. And if you recall, Ken, I guess it's been some months ago now, we had them on with their latest documentary, Dysphoria. And they do a terrific job on these documentaries. Well, they've got a new one out now, and it's called Title IX. So we're gonna spend our program next Monday talking to them about this newest documentary, Title IX, and obviously it pertains to all the new regulations that the Biden administration has introduced regarding Title IX and some of the changes and so forth. Like I said, we have a trailer that we're going to be able to show, but can't show the entire documentary. But so that ought to be a very interesting evening for us to meet and talk with Mark and Amber. So
Forward to that, sure.
yeah. So that's coming up next Monday. Also coming up then the following Monday will be our next roundtable. And that's coming up then on September 23rd. John Ackerman will be hosting the roundtable. And that, of course, the topic that evening is going to be presidential powers, according to Article 2 of the Constitution. So that's kind of an interesting topic right now, presidential powers. And I'm sure we'll get into executive orders and all that sort of stuff. So John always does a great job on that. So we'll have a good time on the roundtable on September 23rd. All right. Ken, any viewer comments or questions that we need to take a look at tonight?
No, we've had a number of comments basically about, we've had a couple, one viewer that signed a petition tonight, so we can raise the fireworks for that tonight. We had somebody sign the petition, and
Great.
and interested in getting that debt clock video back up again at some point so they can view that. So other than that, it's just some people checking in and enjoying the conversation tonight.
All right. Well, good. Well, folks, if you're viewing tonight and if you've got any comment or question after our broadcast, feel free to drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. So that's how you can get a hold of us via email. Well, we're going to wrap up our broadcast tonight with another Convention of States Basics video from John Ackerman. John is just really cranking out these COS Basics videos. He's up to, did you see this latest one, Ken? He's up to number 24.
24, yeah, I got it today.
Yeah. So John's really into this. And so
good.
Yeah, he does a really good job. So let's, this is number 24. And no, this is number 13. Yeah. So once this video is completed, we'll automatically sign off for this evening. So folks, once again, we apologize that we didn't get the debt clock video played for you this evening, but I wanted to, we will certainly try and get that lined up again for a future broadcast, and because Gary really does a good job on explaining that debt clock.
I did mention, Dale, that I did mention in the chat that if people subscribe to our channel, that clock series, that debt avalanche series, is featured in our subscribers.
Yes. And so is the Meet the Founders series and John's COS Basics. All those are going to be there too.
John's journal.
Yep. John's journal. Yeah, I forgot about John's journal. He always those are always good too. So we got if you're a subscriber, there are some real benefits to being a subscriber. So
that's right. Yep.
We look forward to you joining us as a subscriber. So Ken, let's bring on COS Basics here, and then we'll automatically sign off. So
sounds
have
good.
A good evening, everyone.
Good night.
John Ackerman for Convention of States, Indiana. This is the ongoing series on COS Basics, and we're having a little fun these days busting some myths, okay? Today's myth is that there are no rules for holding a convention like this. It would be complete chaos. That's a myth. The fact is that the so-called no rules argument is meant to scare you. It's gaslighting at its finest. And again, much of this information is found on the conventionofstates.com website. A lot of this is not original with me. I'm just telling you what's on the web. Here's the fact. All the delegates to the convention will have some familiarity, at least with Robert's Rules of Order. And most of the delegates will either be legislators or attorneys, and they'll be well versed in rules of order and rules of procedure. To think that a group of legislators and attorneys wouldn't know how to conduct a convention is just absurd. Everyone there would know that you need to elect a convention chairman, for example. Everyone there would understand the concepts of making motions, amending motions, priority of motions, and on and on. Even convention opponents admit that the convention will set its own rules. So saying that there will be no rules just isn't honest. Now, there are a couple of ground rules for an Article 5 convention that we already know about. First of all, voting will be by state, most likely one vote for each state. Why? Because a convention of states is a meeting of equals. States at a convention would each have the same voting strength, similar to the way member countries in NATO or the United Nations have equal voting strength. One nation, one vote. And it's always been this way in conventions in the United States. Every interstate convention in our history has had one state, one vote. One exception to that, there was a convention in the late 1800s where each state got 8 votes. Go figure. But even in that case, no state had greater voting power than any other state. They were all equal. It was a convention of states. You get delegates from the 50 states together. Each one has one vote. The other thing we know already about the rules at the Convention of States is that every state legislature would control the process from beginning to end. There's no such thing as a runaway convention. The convention would be controlled by the state legislatures. It's a convention of the states, and each state will have its say-so. For example, Indiana and many other states have what's known as the faithful delegate law. However many delegates we send to the convention will be accountable to the Indiana General Assembly. And if they don't vote according to the instructions given them by the General Assembly, they will be subject to arrest upon return to the state and prosecution as a felon. It's a felony level law. So, it's a great myth that there are no rules for the convention. There are already some rules in place that we know about. And then when the convention meets, it will set its own rules. So don't be afraid. Don't be gaslighted. It's a very safe procedure.